on day one, did you expect that you could get it to that level of growth? And I guess more importantly, did you expect that the percentage shift from hard copies to digital would be as profound as it was?
Well, I certainly thought the potential was there. I mean, I took the job. I mean, in a weird way, you know, if they ask you to become a CEO of a company, you become a bit like an investor. The stock was about $8, and you think, well, you know, do I know better than the market? Can I see something there which the market isn't seeing? And in this case, I honestly thought this is a world-beating brand. They haven't destroyed their newsroom in the way so many others have. All we have to do is fix the way of getting this great journalism in front of people, and we can build a big business. And I'd started talking to Reed Hastings back in the early 2000s about what he was doing in entertainment. I didn't see why we couldn't do it as well. So I couldn't have put a number on it, but I really did walk in thinking, if we can only figure out a way of unlocking it, there's real potential there.
Well, to your point about the share price, Mark, I hope some of your pay packet each year has been in equity rather than just cash. In terms of the other kind of point that Sarah mentioned as well, you know, when you were Director General of the BBC, clearly impartiality wasn't just something you cared about passionately, it was something that was dictated to you by the government and by the regulators. Did you find it hard to pivot to running a company that in print in the US, print in the UK is the same, didn't have that regulator over the top enforcing impartiality? Did that grate to your inner bones about impartial journalism? Or do you refute the accusation that some people have that the New York Times is slightly partial?
Sure. So you'll know, Wilf, that my job at the Times was chief executive, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have any editorial responsibility. By the way, it feels rather nice not having editorial responsibility. But of course, I'm a passionate supporter of the Times. The Times doesn't have the formal obligation to impartiality that the BBC does. It's got, in its news pages, still a very deep commitment to trying to be objective in its news pages. Its opinion pages are different. Its editorials for many years have on balance left, and it certainly has a slight preponderance of liberal voices in its opinion pages. But there's a real commitment to objectivity. But in very polarized times, you know, many people, when they talk about wanting impartial journalism, they actually mean journalism which agrees with their worldview. To the impartial looks partial. And I think what we're seeing and the kind of noise around impartiality has got more to do with the growing splits and the growing polarization of American political discourse, much more to do with that than I think it actually has to do with the New York Times as such.
And that brings us to Facebook. We really wanted to ask you about this move yesterday. Facebook announced that it's going to ban political ads in the week before the election, which has obvious loopholes. And it's just a reminder that there's a big misinformation problem on Facebook when it comes to people reading conspiracies and fake news and fake political ads, frankly. How big of a threat do you think a platform like Facebook is to our democracy and to the New York Times and its reputation and its business model?
I don't think this particular issue is a threat to the New York Times. I mean, I think in some ways the New York Times stands there alongside, by the way, the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the Economist and the FT and many others. But we stand there as you know, if you come to us and to our destination, we're accountable for what we do. We absolutely will stand up behind everything we do. We're not purveyors of fake news. We're reliable. So in some ways, I think we're not part of this. Having said that, I mean, I think Facebook, and I've talked a lot to Mark Zuckerberg and others at Facebook on the issue of how they deal with the many, many issues. I think they're trying to deal with it. But I think it's a real testimony to the difficult place we've all come to, including Facebook, that it's just so hard for them to do anything without everyone immediately becoming worried about the potential unintended consequences of what they're doing. So I do think we're in a mess. I don't think we know, honestly, how much any of this actually affects voting intention, actually changes results. I don't think we know that yet. But clearly, these platforms have chosen that, well, they've developed into really quite murky environments where real journalism, real facts bump into and often gets blurred with nonsense and indeed hostile propaganda, indeed some of it paid for by foreign governments. So it's a real mess. And I think one of the to-dos for the world, in 2021 and onwards is we really ought to try and make sure somehow or other we unpick this and get back to a point where the public get really clear and direct access to news they can trust.